home stretch of this episode, folks, and the finish line is in sight.
I can make it!
So, kick it into high gear as we wrap things up with the live and running Iowa co-founder, Troy Belmer. Troy goes all the way back to his days of folding towels at the tanning studio and picking strawberries, to present day and trying to be the best Michael Scott he can be at the Dunder Mifflin of the Midwest. This guy loves women's wrestling and the Easter sunrise service at First Baptist Church Dunkerton. But don't let him catch you littering or talking on speakerphone in public.
Hey! Did I just see you talking on your phone with speaker on?
No, I swear, it's going through my AirPods. No, wait! Oh!
In the end, Troy and Bubba are really gonna let loose on the dangers of kids on social media. So, let's kick the tires and light the fires. Here's your host, Bubba Seaman.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. What is up? Welcome back for part 2 with my buddy, fitness guru and mental health advocate, Troy Belmer. If you missed part 1, go back and listen to it. Part 2 isn't going to make sense if you don't listen to part 1, because we're going to get into serious stuff at the end, and you want to know his background and why he is an expert in this field. So go back and listen to it, or watch it if you got the time to watch it. We're in high definition. Wave to the camera, Troy. YouTube, Spotify. I think Spotify's putting out video and stuff. So I'm completely video now, but you can do it either way. It's up to you. If you want to know more about Troy and get some background, we talked about what it was like for him growing up and how he dealt with losing a classmate and a friend to suicide and what led to the eventual rise in the mental health behemoth that Alive and Running is. All volunteer-led, nonprofit. It's the best thing going for mental health and suicide prevention and awareness in the state for sure. So check it out. This week, though, we're going to get into his segments. We're going to have some fun, definitely have some laughs, I hope, and get a little serious at the end, which is kind of the point of the podcast. We're not just down here to say everything's sunshine and rainbows. We're going to have fun, but we're also going to get serious. So to my audience, if you haven't already, or if you're new, I'm glad to have you. If you're part of Troy's crew and you're only here because of Troy, that's great. Stick around. I'm hoping my secret formula is 10%. If 100 new listeners come just because of Troy, 10 of you find it interesting enough to say, oh, I'm going to follow this. I'm going to subscribe to it. And so I can hear what he's got this week, or you're going to go back and watch. That's kind of the secret recipe. So, but I'd hope that number would be higher than 10%, because me and Troy got a lot in common. So if you like Troy, I don't know why you wouldn't like the stuff that I'm doing. So, Amen. Okay. Be sure to subscribe, follow, like wherever you listen or watch. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Leave us that 5-star. That helps. I think we're up to 60 5-star ratings on Spotify. Follow our Instagram and our Facebook and our TikTok for more reels, pictures, and giveaways. Yes, we do merch giveaways. We just did some pro-life bamboo pajama giveaways for a guest that I had, the owners of that company. I don't think we can give away any Gordon Flesh product. I don't think people want it.
It's not top of mind, no.
Maybe those office stickers that you mentioned in part 1. Maybe I can give away a set of those or something like that. But go check us out on social media. If you see something you like on there, a funny reel or something, I'm going to try and chop up Troy's episode, put some good reels out there. Share those. Put those out there. It's okay. Don't be embarrassed to share something to your story from this podcast. So show off your impeccable taste by sporting some of our merch. Hold that shirt up, Troy. Show them what you're leaving with today. If you want something like that, our signature black shirt, it's got a Bible verse on the back. Me and Troy talked a little bit about focusing on what was important, that your value doesn't come from anything that you do or anything like that. Yeah, I got some nice stickers. So on the back of the shirts, it all says, focus on the things that are above, okay? This life is only a short amount of time. So they're awesome shirts. If you want one, let me know. We'll hook you up. Once you've done all that, you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the best new podcast on the market. Okay, it might not be the best new, but I'm biased, all right? We're trying to do something good here. So welcome back, Troy. Ready for part 2?
Absolutely.
Ready to get into your segments? Do you remember the ones you picked?
I think so.
Okay, here we go.
It came from the heart, so either way, I'm fine.
That's right. And then you get guests who sit there and be like, oh, I don't remember picking that one. And then they got to think about it. But the audience never knows that because of the magic of editing. I just make it look like, oh, yeah, I'm ready for this. One of my favorite segments, the Doug Heffernan segment. This is based off Doug Heffernan from King of Queens. You know, he's the old football star from high school. And then real life sets in. You grow up, you get married, you know, you get the job, but you still hang on to those high school glory days. So tell me about one of your, most memorable sports moments or glory days from high school.
All right. So I would have to say glory moments. When you look at Dunkerton, and like we talked about in the first episode, it's not always been a strong football school.
Yep.
But our sophomore season, we had such a good run. You mentioned Jay Weidman and everyone within, the Iowa Star Conference back in the day knew who that guy was. And to be able to play alongside of him, and it was fun. I mean, Dunkerton went from being maybe the laughing stock sometimes, even though we played games tight.
Sure.
It just shows W's and L's, right?
Yep.
But just to run over people and be a part of that. I mean, it was fun.
Yeah.
And to beat schools that we didn't always beat, right?
Right.
Beating places like Mason City, Newman, and stuff like that, you dreaded those long bus rides other years, and that year was fun.
Sure. Yeah, that's, what was it? Ross Tucker fills in for Dan Patrick quite a bit, and he says there's no better feeling as a human being than moving someone against their will.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's pretty deep words from Ross Tucker. So.
Yeah, and I guess the other, Doug Heffernan moment would have to be wrestling.
Yes, yeah.
Being a Dunkerton kid, walking into a foreign school, it's not easy. Every day I'm riding a bus. Not really a bus, more of a van. It was a green van. And actually Barb Nesbitt drove me most of the time.
Of course she did.
Of course that goes full circle, right? But just going into a room, being a fat kid, not even wanting to be there, just wanting to lose weight, to really growing into the sport. And some of my best friends are from Jessup and from that wrestling room. And that community, the way they rallied around me, what I noticed was early on, my mom and dad were cheering, right? And my brother.
Sure.
As time went on, all of a sudden, the Bucknells and the Shooties and the Browns, and all of a sudden, when you get that little break in between, you go off the mat, you're walking back, and you're like, holy cow, these guys are cheering for a Dunkerton kid.
Yeah.
And I think, we had letter jackets back in the day. I know it's not cool anymore, but it was really cool to us. And to be the only kid with a J, right?
Yeah.
On that Dunkerton coat, and I had my pins on there.
Yeah.
Like, I wore that thing with a lot of pride because of that. I was the only one to do it. It's the only one in school that had it. And Dunkerton has always been so foreign to wrestling that my friends didn't go. I mean, there was one meet in 2 years that they came to.
Yeah.
And I was actually just talking to my friend Becky the other day. We went through K through 12 together, and she ended up, raising her kids at Bosco, and they were wrestlers. And
okay.
So we've talked a lot about wrestling, and she's like, I always feel like such a terrible friend that we never went. And I'm like,
oh,
I get it, but it was foreign to you guys. It's during basketball season. It's in a different school.
Yeah.
But man, that sport just taught me so much about it's you, right?
Yeah.
What's interesting about wrestling is it's an individual sport, but I also think it's probably one of the strongest team sports. When you look at whether it's boys or girls, you look at two people on the mat together and they're going at it, but you've got an entire bench that cares about you winning.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you winning has an effect on the team score, but has no effect on whether they win a state title or whether they go on to a D1 school, but they're supporting you.
Yeah.
I watched a national tournament this year. Parker Keckheisen from UNI, national champion last year, second the year before, gets second this year. His last chance to be a national champion. Which could have been very devastating to him. They span over to where they're taking pictures of the other place winners, and there he is taking a picture of Carter Hopple on the stand. You just lost one of the biggest matches of your life, but there you are supporting your team.
Yep.
And that's the team side that I talk about that you just don't find. And with wrestling too, when I wrestled, weight cutting was way different, right? So we didn't body fat check. We didn't do any of that. It was just skinny as you can get and starve yourself. And we weighed in the morning, so you might be 6 pounds heavier by the time you wrestle that night. But going through that too,
oh yeah,
that was hard at Dunkerton too, because I'm sitting at the lunch table not eating, going to basketball games, spitting in a cup, right? not eating anything, and everyone's looking at you like, you're such a weirdo.
You're crazy, yeah.
Yeah. But at Jessup, it was normal. Those kids had everyone around them.
Wrestling culture.
And I'm fighting these weight loss demons by myself with a bunch of people going, you're so stupid. For a pound, you're going to do
Is
all
it
this?
worth it? Yeah.
Yeah, because I got to weigh this weight.
Yeah.
It's not close.
Yeah.
You got to weigh that, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, there's a discipline that doesn't come with any other sport. Wrestling is its own thing. It is for sure. And I like how you talked about the support thing. Our coach here, Brian Crawl, I've known him for a long time, and he's always had the same mentality. He said these kids and their parent, like they become my wrestling family.
Yeah.
They're not done their senior year with me. Like, we're still involved. We're still going to stay in touch. You build a bond that is just stronger than just coach and athlete. It's wrestling family. So I like it. I like it a lot. Good stuff. And for the record, nope, couldn't have wrestled. Way too hard for me. My hat's off to everyone who does. Too much discipline, too much hard work, and I just wanted my name called on a Friday night kind of thing. If I had applied myself, maybe something better, but no. Not good. Okay, let's move on to the next segment, job rundown. Now, you mentioned a few in part one, but can you go from beginning to present day? Can you go back to your childhood? Can you run the whole job rundown?
Yeah, I think so. So started off, as a young kid, I was mowing yards,
Yeah.
I think $10-12 a yard or something like that. So I was doing that. And then my parents owned a tanning studio for a period of time. A lot of people don't know that, but it was called Sun Life, and it was in Cedar Falls. And so they had cloth towels that they used to clean the bed every time.
Yeah.
And they were using a company called City Laundry right here in Old Wine.
Yeah.
And it got to be pretty expensive. So I think it was 14 cents a towel is what City Laundry was charging to do that. And so my dad said, if you're willing to do this, we'll pay you what we pay City Laundry.
Okay.
So all through high school, probably starting in junior high, I folded towels every night. I mean, there was times I'd go to bed, mom would come wake me up, you got to fold another batch, especially like during prom season, homecoming, that kind of stuff, right? Peaks. And so I would sleep kind of in increments, and mom would wake me up, or I would get up early in the morning, and it was nothing to fold like 1,000 towels in a day.
Wow.
So I was doing that. And then I think my first other job outside of there, so I was always working on farms. I worked on a Doss farm where Rogers grew up. So they raised chickens.
Yep.
So did you ever go out there and do that?
I did not, but I had classmates, Clint Weber and some of those guys that would always talk about going to the Doss chicken farm.
Oh my Lord. So you would load chickens out when they had to go, and then when they came in, you'd load them in. Well, one thing that was always cool about it was, so you'd load the chickens out, and there's always ones that get loose, right? You grab them and they get loose. Well, then they would shut all the lights off in the barn because it calms the chickens down.
Okay.
And then you would slowly walk around there, and the chickens are in their poop, right? And it's gross. And you'd grab these chickens, and then they flop, and it gets all over you. Just a stupid good time, but we did it, right? And I bailed for Doss's. I actually did a lot of hay raking for them. And I worked for Jim Nesbitt outside of Dunkerton, also doing different stuff.
Okay.
Ran a hog farm for Dick Mangrich. So they had two farms. One was up north here by the kind of like where John Even lives, Old Man John.
Okay.
Dave Maurer ran that one, and I ran the one on Independence Avenue where Jeremy Cutsworth lives now. So every day after school, I'd go out and do chores and take care of that stuff. Oh, I'm missing the strawberry farm. So I worked at
It's in here. I'm following
Yeah.
along. You're hitting them.
So I worked at the strawberry farm for a short period of time, and I started a strawberry fight one day in the strawberry fields, and I got fired for it, because that's profit, right?
You're throwing away the product.
Yeah. So he brings me in and fires me, and I get home and tell mom and dad, I got fired. And they called me back like 3 days later, and I was like, no.
I'm good.
Because I'm too proud, right? I'm not going back. So I had a 3-day stint there. Did a lot of hay baling, tons of hay baling.
That's good for any young man in high school.
Oh, so good. So good. And then, going through high school, did all those jobs.
Any fast food? You're not forgetting a fast food one, are you?
Oh, boy. So Monty Jacobson was a classmate of mine, and his sister was like a GM for Taco John's. So the Jacobson boys all worked there, and then I feel like every kid around there did too. Well, I went there, and I made it 3 days. And if you love Taco John's, I'm sorry, but I had to work on a Saturday morning. That was my third day, and I get in there to open, right? And they have me take all this stuff out from last night and warm it up, and it smells atrocious. And I didn't realize that restaurants serve leftovers. Like, I always thought when you went to a restaurant, it was fresh. And they're like, no, like, we can't just throw that away. So I'm having to warm up all this leftover, taco meat and stuff. And at the end of the day, Wendy came in and I was like, I'm going to go back to the farm. It just ain't for me. Like, I don't like it. So very short stint in fast food.
Okay.
And then I get out of high school. So my plan going through high school was I was going to the military, right? I love the military life. I was going to go be a 20-year vet and serve the country. I was going to go to the Air Force. My buddy Dave Maurer was going to the Navy. Our friend that was a year older than us, Jason Amy, he went to the Air Force. So I was going to go to the Air Force. And I go down to take my physical and pass all the physical stuff. Well, they give a hearing test, like with these things, right? The beep beeps.
Yep.
So my brother and I were both born with a hearing disability. So we wore hearing aids when we were younger. And so, like, when I first showed up at Dunkerton, I've got the 2 wraparounds.
Okay. Yeah.
I remember people calling me an alien, because they, like, what is this kid? Why does he have these things on his ears? And back then, like, if you went up behind somebody that had those and you put your hands around them, they would just whistle like nuts in your ears.
Oh, yeah.
And people would do that to me.
Oh,
and it
man.
I hated it. So I got to 4th grade and I made a deal with my parents. Maybe the dumbest decision I ever made. But I made a deal with them and said, if I can stay on the honor roll, can I take my hearing aids out? Because I was very good at reading lips. And that's really how they figured out that we had a hearing problem, was because they started to notice that if you were behind myself or my brother, we didn't respond to you. I was very good at reading lips. So my parents agreed, said, yep, you can take them out. So I didn't have to wear them. So I never wore them again. So I go down to do this physical and I pass everything and they've already given me a hearing test. And he comes out and he's like, hey, wait, I had a little issue with the hearing test. Would you mind doing that again? I'm like, no, that's fine. He's like, do you have a hearing problem? Nope. So I failed again. Then he comes back out and he's like, okay, you have one last chance. Do you have a hearing problem? And I said, yes, I do. And I go, but you're going to yell at me the whole time anyway, so it doesn't matter. And he's like, it does matter, because we do need to be able to make sure that we can communicate with you. And so that time I remember I just kept raising my hand thinking it's got to be one or the other.
Sure.
I got 50-50 shot.
Yeah.
And I failed it. And I remember my dad had this big old white Cadillac, 4-door, he was in sales for Rainsoft at the time, and he had a bag phone. Remember those?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I drove that to Des Moines for my physical, and I think he had like 30 minutes for the month, right? And he wanted me to call when I was done. So I called, and he answered the phone at the house, and he's like, hey, on your way home, bud? And I was like, yep. He's like, how'd it go? Good to go? And I'm like, failed my physical. And he's like, how'd you fail your physical? I was in great shape in high school. How'd you fail your physical? And I said, my hearing test came back to haunt me. And he's like, oh, we'll talk about it when you get home. So I get home, and I'm torn up, right?
Sure.
This is like April, and I'm going to graduate in a month. And I assumed I was going to the Air Force the whole time. So now all of a sudden I don't know what to do. Like, shoot. College wasn't my thing. I didn't want to do that at all. So I went to work for Jeremy Nagel and Darren West. They were both Dunkerton dudes, 5 years older than me. They're a year older than my brother. And they started this little concrete company. I'd never poured concrete before. So I went to them and I'm like, hey, I need a job. They're like, yep. You know anything about concrete? Nope. And I remember the first job we poured was a dog run in Cedar Falls. And the sky was not good. And those two were arguing about whether we were going to pour or not. One was like, yep. The other one was like, no. So the one guy won. We no more than pour it, and it starts raining. So we throw burlap over it, and we're done for the day, right? Come back the next morning, we pull it off, and I think it looks fine. Like, a dog is going to poop on this. Like, how great does it need to be? And the homeowner's like, no, take it out. So I'm like, well, now what happens?
Wow.
And Jeremy's like, well, we just lost our ass, right?
We eat it. Yeah.
So you got to break it up. I go, how are we going to do that? And he hands me a sledgehammer. And I start swinging. And the concrete's still kind of green, right? Dude. And it's not breaking. And, of course, they're giving me a hard time. Like, you swing like a grandma. And then I'm getting mad, right? And I'm swinging harder and harder. And they're like, dude, you got to break this whole thing up. Like, start swinging like a man. So they're going to leave. I'm like, where are you guys going? They're like, we got to go bid on another job. So just keep swinging. And they left me there for like 3 hours. And I swung and I swung and I swung. I mean, I was soaked. I had blisters. They show back up and they're backing up in the pickup. And I'm kind of like, why are you backing up? All of a sudden they get a jackhammer out. And I go, what's this all about? And they're like, well, they're never going to come out with a sledgehammer.
Dude.
I go, but I had to just swing that thing for 3 hours and you knew it wasn't going to work? And they're like, dude, you get paid by the hour. We're not going to pay you to ride around in a pickup. So you're going to do something. I'm like, oh, okay, this is concrete work, right? So then I learned how to run a jackhammer. And so I worked for him throughout that summer. And then, 2 young guys starting a business, losing that job didn't help, but it just didn't work out. So they were like, hey, we're closing shop, we're done. So buddy of mine, Eddie Barretts, lives outside of Fairbanks.
I know Eddie.
Old Dunkerton boy.
Yeah.
He was working at Young Plumbing and Heating, so I put in an app there and went there. So he was on the plumbing side, and I got put on the HVAC side, heating and cooling.
Okay.
So at the time, they were putting a new addition on what I call Covenant, which is Mercy One. And so I worked in there pretty much the whole time. Did a little bit in the jail, but mostly there. Great experience, just being around people. But I started to notice, like, these guys are miserable, right? They're coming on break. They're sitting on their 5-gallon pail, complaining about life.
Hating life.
My dad was in sales at the time, and I never wanted to be in sales. Like, if I back up, so my dad was a truck driver growing up. He was in shape, always took care of himself, and I was proud of my dad being a truck driver. I mean, I was. And he hurt his back and could no longer drive truck. So he was unemployed for a while, and I remember coming home from school one day, and he's in a tie, right? And he's like, I took a job today. I go, cool, what are you going to do? I'm going to sell water equipment. And I was like, very disappointed. Like, you're going to be a salesman? Yeah. You're going to dress like that every day? Yeah. And I was really disappointed, like, because all of a sudden my vision of my dad changed, right? So he never pushed it on me. I didn't really care, but I started to talk to him about this stuff, and he's like, hey, if you want to give it a shot, you can. And so normally they only hire full-time people to be sales. Well, because of my dad's success and his relationship with Terry Bonnick, the guy that still owns it today, Terry agreed to let me do it part-time. So this is where I'm living with Ryan, and I'm working full-time at Young's. I'm working part-time at Reed Cadillac, which is now Community. And then so Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I'm at Reed's. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I go out at night and I'm selling water treatment equipment. And again, like, this is party time, and we had to learn a script, right? And it was big of how to present. We had a pitch book we had to go through.
Yeah.
And you had to be letter for letter. Like, we used to do sales meetings where they would videotape you, and you better be letter for letter. Some of it's legal, right? You can't misstate stuff.
Sure.
So I'd be sitting there reading my script, and Ryan would be like, what are you doing? Like, you're never going to be a salesman. Like, this is stupid. Why would you do this? And then I started having success in it, and then, ended up staying in it for 7-8 years. Me and my brother actually owned our own dealership for a little while.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out so well, so we closed that, and that's kind of how I got brought back to Iowa.
Okay.
When I decided to get out of the water business, I was still in Minnesota, and I went to work for a seed company, of all things.
Okay.
And I was buying and selling basically pre-contracted acres and seed. It wasn't really my jam. I was in the warehouse more than anything, loading seed bags and stuff like that. I enjoyed that more than I did the sales part of it. So I was kind of burned out with sales, right? Like,
yeah.
The rain soft thing didn't end well, so I was kind of burned out with it. Well, then I need to come back to town. I need to get back to Iowa. I want to be back with my family. And I take a job as a supervisor at a telemarketing firm called Ross Marketing.
Yeah.
It's now called Access Marketing Solutions. They're a customer of mine. So I still stay in contact with people I used to work with. So I worked there for a while. And there was a place called Harmon Glass, which doesn't exist anymore. And they needed a sales rep. And so it was the Currys, like Bob Curry, Jim Curry, Jason Snyder worked there at the time, and Marianne Liddell. And Dwight Tushy worked there for a little while.
Okay. So
I started as their sales rep, and I was there for a couple of years. Good gig. Really liked it.
Yeah.
And then they got bought out by a company called Glass Doctor. And it was, so I had all of Waterloo, Cedar Falls, and all of Cedar Rapids. Well, Glass Doctor was franchising things, and they said, there's no way that the same person's going to buy both, and there's no way that you can make the income that you're making just working in one market.
Yeah.
So that's where I end up at Budweiser. And I know we talked about that a little bit.
My dad worked at Iowa Auto Glass, which was the
competitors.
direct competitor to Harmon.
Competitor. Yeah.
But, yeah. Because Harmon, wait, you said Dwight?
Dwight Tissue worked there.
Dwight Tissue, that'd be Aaron's dad, right? Yep. Yeah, so when Stan was gone one time, and I don't know if it was Sarah, Lance, whoever, we were all over there and we broke a window.
Oh.
And we were like, we got to get this fixed before their dad comes home. And Aaron's like, you can call my dad, maybe. And Dwight did. He fixed it, and I don't know. Who paid for it?
He only charged $5.
Yeah.
Really?
And so Stan never knew. If he's listening to this now, or I don't think he does know, does he?
I don't know.
But yeah, Dwight, thanks for the hookup, buddy. Appreciate it. Harmon Auto Glass.
People helping people.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, okay, keep going.
Yeah,
You're
so
almost
then-
there.
Yeah. So then I got to find a new job. So I apply at Budweiser to be a sales rep and get that job. And I did that I was in that role for about 2 years. And then they moved me into a district manager role. So now I'm overseeing people. And if you missed the first part, you can go back and hear more of the story. But it was really hard on the family because
Yeah.
you worked all day, go to the bar at night, and, push beer, right? Like a new beer's out. We all had expense accounts. Buy people, hey, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And then obviously special events. It was fun. I got to go to a lot of concerts for free.
Wow.
But you're working. I mean,
Yeah.
you're humping kegs and everything else, like Sturgis Falls, all that stuff, Fairbank Days, all that stuff, right? And Candace was like, hey, man, you either find another career or we're done. So my buddy was working at Advanced Systems, which is now Gordon Flesh, and took that job. And it was basically straight commission. So it was $1,500 a month plus whatever you sell. So beer was straight commission too, but you sell beer every day. So it's not
Sure.
straight commission, but you kind of, you have your highs and lows, but it stays pretty steady. Well, now all of a sudden the family income is like, holy cow, what if you can't sell this stuff?
Yeah.
Well, we'll figure it out. So I reached back out to Budweiser. So they have merchandisers that put the product on the shelves over the weekends in the big stores,
Okay.
Walmart's, Hy-Vee's,
Oh, yeah.
Fairways. And I said, hey, is there any chance that I could be a merchandiser out here in this area? And I would do it on the weekends. And they said, yeah, we would love that. I mean, you know everything you need to know, date codes, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So on the weekends, I would do Food Center here in town, and then I'd go to Independence and do Music Station, Fairway, Walmart.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think that was it. I don't think I went to Old Wine. So I would do that Friday night, twice on Saturday, twice on Sunday. So that's a lot of
Dude.
no free time. And I was doing it to supplement the income initially. And I had picked up the office gig, the Dunder Mifflin thing really well.
Yeah.
And like 18 months in, my manager came to me and he's like, hey, I want you to quit this part-time job.
Yeah.
And I said, why? I said, it doesn't affect anything. I said, and now it's just kind of bonus money for us. I said, we don't work on weekends. And he's like, but mentally it's hard on you. I know that it is.
Okay.
Because you're not getting any time to disconnect.
Yep.
And so we argued back and forth, and I went and talked to Candace about it. And of course, she's like, do kind of like that income, but I also know that you're tired all weekend.
Yeah.
We don't see you because you get up at 5 a.m. and then you got to leave again at 5 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So I agreed to do it, and he was right. My income more than doubled what I was doing with the part-time thing. And so I did that. So I had a territory of 50702 in Waterloo, and then I had Grundy, Tama, Marshall County, and then some small stuff, right? Like I had Dunkerton and Hudson and LaPorte, which were part of Black Hawk County, and just built a really good customer base. Always stuck with what my dad told me, like if you do what's right for the customer, it'll always work out. Like,
Yeah.
never focus on the money. And I truly, that's what I try to train my people to do now is like, it's not about you. Listen to your customer, ask your questions, and do what's right, and you'll be okay. And then we get acquired by Gordon Flesh, and I talked about this in the first episode, but I didn't want to move into management right away, but now I've been in there since July of 2020. Love it.
Yeah.
My team is tight. I'm really big on culture. We do a lot of team building stuff.
Oh, cool.
I get them to do things they don't want to do. Like we just did, we'll have like a professional develop meeting once a month. And 2 months ago, I think, we went and did hot yoga afterwards.
Oh, boy.
So, and we've done CrossFit type workouts. We've done, what's the name of that place? Orange Theory.
Okay.
They brought us in one time. So we do a lot of different team building stuff like that. We actually did some, I had a friend of mine, Katie Delgadell. She's a mental health therapist, and she does a thing called art journaling. So I had her come in, and we did that. So like, talk about putting dudes out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Is basically she lays out thousands of pictures, and you go and pick pictures that mean something in your life, and you put them on a board. So it's like a vision board on steroids. And then we left it open whether anybody wanted to share. So at first, everyone's just sitting there like, I'm not talking. This is my feelings, right? Like we're a bunch of dudes. We're not talking about this. And then one guy talked, another, and then pretty soon they all shared.
Okay.
And it's always interesting. My manager always tells me, he's like, man, you do some pretty risky things, and they always work out. And I don't always know why you're doing them, but it works out. Like one day we got done with the meeting, and I told him to meet me, and I just gave him an address. And it was a cemetery in Cedar Falls. And so we get to the cemetery, and I have just gathered in a cemetery, and they're all like, "What in the world is he doing?" Like, this is like he must have watched Dead Poet Society and thought it was cool. Robin Williams was always in that movie. So they're like, "Why are we here? Like, are we here to see somebody that you lost?" I said, "Nope." I said, "We're here to talk about all the people that brought their dreams to their grave," and spent probably half an hour talking about, don't take your dreams to your grave, man.
Yeah.
Like, if you want something, go get it now.
Sure.
Because my point to them was, every person here came here with something that they wish they would have done.
Yeah.
Whether it's calling an old friend, being an entrepreneur, making amends with an old enemy. Like, don't take that stuff to your grave. And yeah, afterwards,
act on it. Go.
Yeah. So yeah, I enjoy it. It's fun.
Cool. Yeah, I like a couple takeaways from that for me is like how you said, we talked a little bit in part 1 about like the changing of culture, around mental health and things. Like the change in culture, you have a boss telling you, you can actually do this job and this job, but if you let go of this job, then that allows you time to disconnect. And like that's big in the workplace culture now,
yes.
Especially in factories and things like that. You need time, like forced vacation time. Like instead of cashing in your unused PTO, that wasn't talked about. Not in the places I've worked anyway. Like that's kind of a newer thing. It gives you time to appreciate time with family, disconnect from work, relax, things like that. We talked about the change in the mental health field. People talk about it now. It's just. It's cool to see how culture has changed. I'm not always a big proponent of culture change, especially when it goes in the negative, but those are like positive aspects that you're talking about right there. I like it. Okay, getting to know you segment. We're going to try and run through these. That way we got plenty of time to talk in your What Is Up segment because we got some really good stuff in there. So let's just get right into it. These are questions that help the audience just get to know you real quick. Christmas music, yes or no?
Absolutely.
My guy.
Yeah.
My guy.
100%.
All right. I don't know how people enjoy Christmas without it. I don't. So
I love it.
If you're on death row, what's your last meal? Everybody gets a last meal. What's yours?
It's going to be something with cheese, man. I mean,
That's it. That's literally what it says. Something with cheese.
Being a fitness person and stuff, and I try to watch my nutrition. I know cheese is bad for you, but it's going to be something with cheese.
Okay.
Cheese curds, something, it's going to be something with cheese.
Yeah. Have you had Boyd's cheese curds?
Oh, yeah.
They're like famous, I guess.
Yeah.
So, all right. Best memory from church. You chose that one.
Man, sunrise service at the Baptist church.
Yeah.
That was something I always look forward to. Such a great time.
Yeah.
One, I'm an early morning person, right? So church is done by 7:30.
Yeah.
And just the idea of being there on Sunday morning as the sun's coming up and we're talking about Jesus coming out of the grave, right?
Yeah.
And our son, who's 30 now, he always went to those when he was younger. And every day on Easter, he'll send a text that says, "Up from the grave he rose."
Yeah.
Because that was always sang, right?
Yep, that was it.
Man, those were great services. And then go eat breakfast afterwards.
We'd always have breakfast afterwards. Yeah, that's
awesome.
right. Good times. All right, if you could play an instrument, what would it be?
It'd be a guitar, man.
Of course.
My wife bought me one a couple years ago. Maybe it's been 4 now for Christmas. And I really need to learn it. I really need to take the time to... I tried learning it on like a Fender app.
Okay.
But I think I need to go get a coach. Like
that would make it easier.
I need to know... Because I was learning the keys, but my mind says like, well, how do I play the dance, right? So I just need to do it. And I need to do it in the winter when it's not quite as busy.
Sure. Yep.
Because we got golf right now. So
okay.
There's no guitar playing. But I love to sit down in our basement. We've got like a little bar down there, and I've got an old 100-disc CD changer. So CDs, right? So they're all old stuff. And I'll sit down there with it on my leg, right? And I'll pretend I'm in Nashville. So I'd love to learn how to play it.
So it's just an acoustic? Is it electric too?
No, just
or
acoustic.
Just
yeah.
acoustic? Yeah, man. This winter, get yourself a coach, get some lessons. Don't take it to your grave. Huh?
Right.
I'm going to turn it right around on you.
Right, yeah.
There you go.
I see what you did there.
That's cool. All right. Write me, riff something that I can use for like lead in and, bump in, bump out music on this thing. That's not copyrighted. I'll put your stuff out there.
Wow.
So, okay. Last one, pet peeves. Everybody's got some. What do you got?
Man, I got a lot. One is littering.
Yep.
It drives me nuts. Every place you go has a garbage can. The gas station has a garbage can. Where you work has a garbage can. Hopefully your house does.
It's not the 80s anymore. It seemed like it was way common when I was a
Yeah.
kid. Just throw your stuff out the window on the interstate.
Oh, yeah.
Now we've gone, the movement has taken place.
Yeah.
Bins are everywhere.
Everywhere. And why people don't use them. Drives me nuts.
Pull up if you're, especially like, I'm not gonna name any names, but my brother-in-law in high school, like there are people who have to have a clean car, and then there's people who don't care if the passenger has to push garbage. Like,
Yeah.
bro, pull up to the gas station. You're going to be staring at a garbage can within 50 feet.
Yeah.
Take all your just dump it in there.
Yeah.
You don't have to clean. You don't have to be like me or you who probably like to have a detailed vehicle, like to see a nice dash or a clean exterior. You don't have to be. Get your garbage out of your car, man.
Yeah, it drives
But
me nuts.
those guys are saying, well, at least I'm not littering. Well, okay, I guess.
Right.
Whatever.
Man, and I'd say the other one that drives me nuts is people being on speakerphone in public.
I love it.
It just irks me, right? Like, I don't need to know what's going on.
How do they not know? How do they
Right.
not know that that's not cool?
It's not cool. And, like walking into a gas station and, a clerk's trying to help them and they're yapping away. You're holding people up. It's
Yep.
disrespectful to
Yep.
super disrespectful to the clerk who's trying to, they're supposed to be friendly to you, right?
Yeah.
Man, it drives me nuts. I don't need to hear that stuff.
Yeah, I hear you. Or what about, like, again, not to say names, but my mom. My mom, she's on the go all the time. She's got this job, that job. She does embroidery. She does concessions. She does this and that. So, and she wanted a good pair of earbuds. So, I told her, hey, I use these Raycon wireless earbuds, super good battery life, all that stuff, and they got a mic in them, so you can Bluetooth them and you can take calls and everything. So now you got the person who ain't necessarily holding their phone like that, and you don't see the cord anymore. So they're just phones in their pocket, and they walk into Dollar General and they're talking.
Yeah.
And you can't. You start looking, and it's like, oh, now I realize you're basically on your speakerphone, even though I can't hear the other person. But to me, that's still. It's like they're meeting you halfway because you don't hear the other person, but you still you walk by somebody and you hear them say something or whatever, and you think they're talking to you, and they're not because they got the earbud in and all that. To me, that's still awkward. Like, just don't when you're in a public place. I get it if you're there and Candace calls and says, "Hey, don't forget, the milk," okay, or something like that. That's quick and easy. But people who are on their phone having public conversations, I'm with you. It's.
Yeah. Has it happened to you in a public bathroom? Like where you're like, somebody talking to me? Like they're in a stall?
No.
Oh, it's happened to me. It's weird. It's weird. Especially if they're like just starting the conversation. So like say they're in a stall and you're at the urinal and all of a sudden they're like, hey man, what's up? And you're like,
Exactly.
it's weird. And then all of a sudden you hear them start talking about something else and you're like, oh, they must be on a Bluetooth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah.
Creepy.
And then you feel like an idiot. At least my own, not in a bathroom, but when that happens, wherever, like, because I know it has happened to me before, you say something in response, and then you figure out they're not talking to you, so you feel like an idiot, but then it goes from feeling like an idiot to, like, kind of feeling mad at them for making you feel that way. So,
Yeah.
Boy, we're solving all the world's problems down here, guys.
Right.
No littering. Get off your phone in public.
Stop it.
Yeah, let's go. All right. We got 20 solid minutes left. We're right on track. We're gonna warm up the What Is Up segment here. This segment is designed to just have deeper discussion, either about something that you're passionate about, a hot button issue that people are just scared to talk about, because I think communication, you kind of hinted to it in part one, like communication is a big thing. You got to have the communication. Don't keep it in. It's good to talk. If you can talk about it in the right way, talk about it. But we can also kind of, start this off a little bit lighter. So for a lighter topic, you said, what is up with mismatched socks? I'm assuming that is it a trend, or does it just bother you if you see it, or what do you mean by that?
All of it, right? Like, number one, how does it happen? Like, your socks are supposed to match.
Yes.
And nowadays, at first it was kids.
Sure.
And it was parents saying, well, they don't want to match them up, whatever. And now adults are doing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they can be different colors. They can be like short ones and long ones. Like, it's, in my opinion, it's just laziness. And laziness is like, that could be a pet peeve too. But it just drives me nuts. Like, why don't your socks match, man?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I wouldn't like to see that. I would be annoyed. I mean, when my kids were little, I guess, if that's all they had on a Sunday morning and I was getting them dressed, and I mean, we're talking little, getting them dressed and they're wearing pants anyway or whatever, like, you ain't gonna see them, and that's all you got clean, but whatever. But yeah, out in public, we've been having to argue about socks lately. I don't like you got the different tiers of socks,
Yeah.
right? Friday night football games, I liked having the tall, white, like knee socks because white shows up, makes you look faster on film. So I would paint my cleats white. I still do when we play our Thanksgiving Day game. It's like white looks faster on film. They say, Dad, there is no film. I'm like, well, you never know. You want to put this on tape? Go ahead.
Right.
But you got the knee socks. Then you got like the crew socks that come up like, below the calf. But then you got those other ones that are ankle socks. They come up above the ankle. I like the no-show. Always have. Now I got a pack of these ones that come up above the ankle. I hate them. My kids say, Dad, those look good. I say they look terrible. They look terrible. What kind of socks are you? What's your go-to sock?
So here it is, man. You're gonna hate me right here.
It's not
Right.
the crew, is it?
Right above the ankle. I like to see it a little bit. Yeah, I just love it. Now, cowboy boots, they're up
You
here,
got to go
right?
high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless you're a true cowboy and you're just used to it rubbing on your leg. I'm not a true cowboy, I guess. But
No.
yeah.
All right. Well,
And they got to be black or gray. I don't wear white socks.
see, I just switched back to white. I went away from white for the longest time. Black. Why not just go black? It never shows how dirty they are because once
Right.
the white ones get stained,
You're
you've got to
done.
soak them in bleach like my grandma used to do, or they're going to have that tinge to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got away. But then somebody, I think Sarah's Aunt Lisa gave me a couple packs. She got a deal or something, and I was like, yeah, I'll take free socks. Boy, you're old and lame when you're taking free socks and you're happy about it. Like,
Yeah.
My goodness. Okay. Let's go into women's wrestling / basketball. We've been talking a lot of women's basketball on here lately. We've covered Caitlin Clark and all that stuff. So give me your take on the rise of women's wrestling.
I love it, man. It's so cool. So for so many reasons. One, it's letting them compete in a sport that they weren't able to before.
Yep.
I remember, I don't know how old she is now, Cassie Herkelman. She's a Cedar Falls girl, and she was wrestling with the boys. That was back before then. She was one of the first girls to ever make the state tournament, and she actually placed on a podium. And I remember following that whole story. Like, it was so cool that she was doing that. And now they have their own platform.
Yeah.
We have very good friends of ours that used to live in Muscatine. They just moved to Story City. But when they were in Muscatine, their daughter wrestled and had never wrestled before because it was new, right?
Sure.
She ends up making it to – we went and watched her a couple times during the regular season. It was her senior year. And then she makes the state tournament. So we go down to Coralville. So cool. So, like, she
Yeah.
starts off, we get down there, and she's like, well, my first match is against a highly ranked girl. It doesn't matter. None of that matters now.
Yep.
She beats her.
Nice.
Like, holy cow. Second match is a girl she lost to on Tuesday of that week. Beats her. Ends up on the podium with a losing record. Like, just so awesome to see that.
Yeah.
And then, like, I always go to the Battle of Waterloo, and now they have their own day for girls. And Candace has really gotten into it too. And what's interesting is we were watching a duel somewhere. I think we were watching Maddie Nesbitt this year. And Candace goes, you know what I love? Is they wrestle to the whistle every time. And I said, you know why they do that? Because they don't know any better.
Yeah.
It's so new to them that they don't know if I stall, I win.
Yeah.
They just know I got to score points.
Yep.
So they literally, because their knowledge of the sport isn't great, it's so fun to watch because they never stop wrestling.
Yeah.
And so this last summer, I'd always given Maddie a hard time about wrestling. And I wanted her to wrestle so bad because, Ryan's a basketball guy, and I knew he'd hate it. And I told her, I said, if you go out for wrestling, I will go to every meet. I promise you
Oh,
that.
cool.
So she did. I missed one because we were on a trip, and one because I had a work meeting that ended at 4 and she was in Williamsburg. But other than that, I went to all of them. So fun to watch her. And what was cool is, so she's a Jessup kid, went to Independence. So I almost relived everything I went through in high school, and I saw the same thing with her. Like, the very first duel, she don't got a lot of people cheering for her.
Yeah.
She's pretty much hanging around one girl, not really smiling, not having fun.
Yeah.
As the season goes on, I see more and more girls by the mat for her. I see her having fun. I mean, her last duel, she was doing cartwheels during warm-ups. Like, this girl had just evolved. And when the season was over, I had taken a lot of pictures of her throughout the year. So I went and had them all printed. And I went and bought her a card and wrote her a nice letter in there and sent her the things of, like,
Oh.
talking about that I know what she went through. Like, to go to another school, you got to get on a bus or a van every day. You don't get to just go home, and just what that's like.
Yeah.
And she sent me a text when she got it, and she was so happy.
Yeah.
And kind of all came full circle. But it was so fun to watch her grow as an athlete, like not really knowing what to do to, by the end of the year, very coachable.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I'd go down by the mat and, kind of help coach as a spectator. And you could say something to her, and all of a sudden you see her eyes move, and all of a sudden she makes an adjustment. So yeah, I just love that they're seeing so much growth in it, and they've got their own platform. And I love they have their own state tournament now.
Yeah.
And these girls are always wanting to get better. And I'm always a big advocate of, like, when women want to work out or they want to be in shape, like, be strong, right?
Sure.
I just listened to a podcast earlier this week where a guy was talking about, like, a lot of times women say, like, I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to do that. I just want to be toned. Well, you can't be toned if you don't have muscle.
Yeah.
So you've got to build muscle before you can even be toned. And now you see these girls that want to be strong.
Yeah.
You look at, like, Lily Luff, the girl from Charles City that kind of became a phenom around this area. Her brother was a great wrestler, and he died in an accident. She got into wrestling, won a couple state titles, I think. Now she wrestles for Iowa.
Okay.
Like, these girls are strong, and
Yeah.
and when I talked about wrestling being a team sport earlier and all of them rallying around them, nothing like girls do. Like, the boys cheer for each other, but the girls are just like that times 10, right?
To another level.
Just
Sure.
like when you watch women's college basketball. You watch the bench of a boys game, and I don't watch a lot of boys, so I don't think it's very exciting. I think there's a lot of egos.
Sure.
You watch the girls, even when Caitlin was around, she didn't care who scored, as long as we score.
Yeah.
And the whole bench is excited. Even when a starter's on the bench, they're excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the women's wrestling, I think, is just going to continue to grow. I was talking to some people this year that are big wrestling guys from Don Bosco, and we were talking about, like, why Bosco doesn't have a team. And he's like, well, we do have a girl, the Irvine girl.
Okay.
And I said, yeah, but you have a team. Like, why don't you have a team? I don't know. We just haven't gotten there yet. But we started talking about women's basketball in high school is on a big decline. Like, Bosco only had like 8 girls out this year. And I asked him, I said, do you think that's because of women's wrestling? Like, these girls are quitting basketball and wrestling? And he's like, no, it's club volleyball. Club volleyball is taking high school girls out of high school basketball because at the same time.
Yeah.
So if they're focused that I'm going to go to college and my club coach is telling me to play volleyball, then I'm going to play volleyball.
Yeah.
So I also feel that it's not hurting basketball. So it's just great.
Sure.
And a lot of times, just like boys wrestling, you look at these girls and you look at their shapes, right? They're not going to play basketball. They're not built for it.
Right. Yeah.
So now they've got a sport they can just really dive into.
Thrive in. Yeah.
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 I love it.
Well, I hear you. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Let's do the last one, probably the most serious one you wanted to talk about today. What is up with social media and its effects on mental health? And you, obviously, being co-founder of Alive and Running, being on the front lines of mental health and resources for that, you guys see this stuff coming. You see its impact firsthand. What is up with it? What are we seeing here?
We're seeing people look at other people's social media. That's a highlight reel, right?
Yep.
We don't put the bad days on there, so it's a highlight reel.
Yep.
And then we're trying to compare our lives to it. Adults are doing it too, but especially with kids.
Yeah.
Thinking, she's got everything going. She's got this. They have a boat. They have that. We don't have this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're putting all their worth in that. Like we talked about in the first segment, right? Like, put your belief in something higher than whatever accolades you're seeing on social media. The online bullying is a huge problem. And I guess I should back up and say that social media can be an awesome tool.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have built Alive and Running without social media. No way. You probably wouldn't have the following you have without social media. So we need it.
Yeah.
But we just need to be smarter about it and take time to talk amongst it with kids and even other adults, It's okay to talk about, I'm not a guy that really bashes people for what they put on there. Like, if I don't like what someone's putting on there, I can just scroll by.
Yeah.
It's when I go and talk with kids in high schools and stuff, one of the things I talk to them about is, like, don't get sucked into things. So in other words, if you know that there's a page that exists that is for something that you believe in and that page does not, don't go there.
Don't go there. Yeah.
Like, if you know, going to KWL's page and you look and you see an article and you look at it and you know the comments are not going to agree with you, just move on. Like my wife and I will share a lot of reels back and forth on Facebook, and she'll ask me, hey, did you read the comments on that? I'm like, no, I never read the comments. Why don't you read the comments? I said, because I have my opinion and that makes me feel good, the way that I read it or the way that I watched it. And I don't care what anyone else thinks. And she's like, I know I get sucked into those rabbit holes. I'm like, see, that's a problem. And now all of a sudden you're upset.
Yep.
And I'm happy.
It affects you mentally. Yeah.
I watch something inspirational or something funny and I feel good inside. I don't care what the 347 people wrote. It's my opinion, Yeah. And the pressure that can be on kids. So I guess I shared this story Tuesday night. This happened several years ago, but there was a young kid within this area. We'll leave it at that. A buddy of mine was working for the county sheriff's at the time. No longer works there, but they get a call from my mom. Her son was downstairs and she said he's suicidal. He has a rope hung up and he says he's going to kill himself. So my buddy goes out there on this call and he gets there and she says he's downstairs. Just please go down there. So he has her sign a waiver that he can speak to him, right? Because he was 15, I think.
Okay.
So he goes downstairs. It's all there, right? It's all hanging up. And, hey, buddy, what's going on? Nothing. No, kid won't talk to him right away. So he keeps working with him. Finally, the kid says, okay, so here's the deal. I was talking to this gal in Texas online. Beautiful, blonde, whole works, right? So my buddy says, first of all, I want to explain to you that you're not talking to that girl. You're probably talking to somebody in another country, really.
Yep.
So what happened? Well, she told me to, take one of those pictures.
Take pictures. Yeah.
So did you do that? Yes. Did you send it to her? Yes. Well, then what happened? Well, then she told me that she needed $200 or she would send it to everybody on my Facebook list. Okay. Did you give her $200? Well, I gave her my debit card and it didn't go through. So my buddy says, why didn't it go through? And he says, well, I only have $16 in my account. And my buddy's like, well, can't get $200 out of 16, so that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So then what happened? Well, then they told me to go get my mom's credit card. And I told her I'd rather be dead. I will not steal from my parents. So then what happened? She sent the picture. And my buddy says, okay, well, first of all, whatever happened, something is going to happen probably within a month at your school. That's going to be a bigger deal than that.
Yeah.
And no one's even going to remember that this happened.
Yeah.
So do you know that she sent the picture? Yeah. How do you know that? I went upstairs and my mom always stays logged into her Facebook, so I got on her laptop and there was a message from her. Okay, did you open it? Yeah. What was there? It said image not available. And he said, so that's what everyone else got too.
Yeah.
So this isn't worth ending your life. And this kid was fully prepared.
He was right there. He was on the edge.
He had it all hanging up. He was going to do it.
What do they call that? What is that? I know exactly, but I think they've given it a name. Is it revenge porn or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
What's the word? They're coercing people into giving them money for those pictures.
So when I talk to kids about it too, first one, don't take pictures, right?
Yes.
Don't ever take those pictures.
Ever.
Ever, ever, ever. Because they're never going to be for good intention. And two, when you're talking to these people, I was never a gamer. Our son was and still is. So I never got into that world. If you're talking to these people on video games or chat rooms or whatever, 9 times out of 10, they're not who you think they are.
Sure, yeah.
So be careful what you're doing there. You know?
Yep.
It's just, I don't know. It's so good and so bad.
Yeah.
You see it with sports too. Like kids get on there and see so-and-so wins this, so-and-so wins that, and I'm not doing that.
Their worth goes down.
It does.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, that's, again, us adults have problems with it. Even if we say we don't, we might not even realize, like you said, you use that terminology, I got sucked in, or Candace said she got sucked in. You know what I mean? You don't realize it. It just kind of happens. And kids' brains are different than adults' brains. Maybe we can handle more, but we got to be guarded as well. But definitely when it comes to the young people side, because we're talking about social media and its effects on mental health, if you can't sit down and teach a young person that, yes, a lot of that stuff is fake. A lot of filters have been applied. There are dangers out there. People who aren't who they say they are. Things like that. Like now the scams are getting more and more well known, but man, you tell a 15-year-old kid in high school that he's got this chick over here. As more and more of those stories come out, I think, yes, and Facebook and them trying, now that they know they're facing possible litigation if they don't start putting up some walls against this stuff. But I think you're seeing some of those social media companies, that's how they were designed. They were designed to suck you in.
Yeah.
No matter if you were a teen or you're our age, it doesn't matter. And I'll say even the pop-up that we all get, it says cookies. This site has cookies. And I've always said, like, I get it. They're tracking your browsing history or whatever. And I've said, well, what's so wrong with that? Because then, I'm looking for new running shoes, or I'm looking at ice pods or something like that, and then all of a sudden I start seeing those ads, and it helps me kind of see other things. I'm like, well, I'm not so against that, but it's just the fact that the whole internet system, social media, advertising, all that stuff, it's designed to appeal to you in a way and pull you in more. When I heard Meta was designing these goggles, these VR goggles, and not just goggles to play a game with, goggles to like live an alternate life online. I'm like, I go back to what we were talking about in part 1, with the lockdowns. That's not how God created us to be. Some stuff will start to misfire if you take us out of community. We're all designed to be members of a community, whatever it may be. And I think that's how you saw like gang culture thrives. Mm-hmm. They give community to people who feel like they don't have any. They give family. And then to the point where they can't get out of it. It's nothing new. It's just we're seeing it in a different way. So like the parents, we just got to have the conversation and tell the kids the dangers of it. And maybe we are exposing them to it too early. I've told my kids recently that I think that, it started with my kids with the Amazon Kindle, and it was just for games, right? It was just for games. And then as they got a little bit older, and then, at some point, every family's got to make that decision. If you're in a community like ours where the school is not in the town, maybe your kid does not need a cell phone at all. Yeah. I'm kind of a proponent for having the phones on the kids at schools, because I'm thinking emergency situations, they are a useful asset. But do they need to have their phone on them at all times? Are we helping them or hurting them? And these things haven't, like I think I just said on the last episode, the young adults today are the first generation to grow up with a phone in their hand. It's not like they didn't exist when you and me were young. Yeah. And so we just think, there's so much established science, there's so much data. No, the data is coming in now of what it was like for kids that have always had a smartphone, always had the internet in their hand, always had social media. And you being in mental health 24/7, you would say it's definitely done harm. Can be useful, can be great, but it's done harm.
Yeah, and I think all of it gets solved, right? If you set boundaries, whether it's...
There you go, yeah.
A screen time limitation or whatever, but Candace and I have a rule that when we go out to eat, we don't have our phones out. It's just what we do, right?
Nice.
Just don't have them out. So I hate restaurants. It's a pet peeve. I hate restaurants that don't have menus anymore, where it's all QR codes.
Oh, I've heard that. Yeah.
Drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I get it. It saves them money, right? They don't have to print them. Nobody spills ketchup on them and stuff. But it forces everybody to be on a phone. And you take a person like my mom, she's got a flip phone.
Yep.
She can't even look at a menu.
Yep.
So anyway, we have this rule that we don't have our phones out. And I guess 2 stories I'd tell about it is one time we were at LJ's in Waterloo, and we're sitting there at a high top, and there's a high top over here of a guy with who appears to be his daughter, who's probably 13, 14. She's sitting there, and her dad's scrolling on his phone, just scrolling. And you can see her just looking at him, like she wanted to talk.
Oh.
This probably went on for 10 minutes. Oh. All of a sudden, she reaches in her pocket, gets her phone out. Nothing gets said. And we see it with couples a lot too. And like we were in another place, I think we were at the OP on Ridgeway one day, and we're just sitting there having a good time, talking to each other. And one of our friends comes over, Sarah Steinwell's her name. She comes over and she's like, dude, don't you guys look at your phones? I'm like, no, why? And she's like,
you.
I've been texting you. And I'm like, yeah, we have a rule. We don't have our phones out.
I like it.
I mean, it's just a rule. And I mean, you go there to connect, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
set limitations is the first step. Like,
have you ever looked? I love that. Set boundaries, set limitations, especially. I mean, not just for your kids, but for yourselves. Because I get this all the time. Like the grown-ups, we go through the child raising phase, and it's all about the kids. It's all about being busy. It's all about doing this, that, and the other thing. Then the kids leave the house, and then the husband and the wife are like, "Wow, what do we have in common anymore?" And then they struggle. So I like what you're saying there. Like you got to connect. You got to make time to connect. That's a core principle in like pre-marriage counseling. Yeah. Make time for each other. No matter how many kids you have, you better have a date night. Yeah. And it better be more than, once or twice a year. It better be more like once or twice a month. because then you're going to be fine. I haven't been to a restaurant. I understand all the restaurants have the things and all that stuff. I think the last restaurant I was at was last year, and that was Peppers, and I think they still had
They still do.
the still thing. I think you're probably going to see, everything old comes back around again. Once it's considered old or, the stuff we had in the 90s. Do you realize how well 90s movies have held up, or music?
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. Taylor Swift's out there, but people still love 90s. It was its own era kind of thing. You're gonna see stuff. You're gonna see people make choices to go back to a restaurant like Peppers or wherever that's gonna have the hard copy menu. I think you're gonna see that. And part of the indicator for that is when you see people unplug, I wish people would post about it more and more when they do it, once they come back, I guess, or whatever. You see how much they appreciate and how much their mental health improved by saying, I'm going to ditch Facebook for a while. I'm only going to use my phone for an hour in the evening. That's all these different types of screen sabbaths, social media, disconnects and things. Everything improves. Everything improves.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time before more and more people catch on to that. You know what I'm saying? Like, people want more of a good thing, and once we start seeing, the more we dive down these rabbit holes and things, and just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean it's a good thing. It doesn't. I think we're learning that lesson the hard way, but I think we're going to learn it, to be honest. For me, I'm with you, and this is probably the last point I'll make, I guess. I'm with you, like, you don't got to read the celebrities don't read the comments. They don't want to hear what you have to say. Yeah. They want to put out their product, whether it's movie stars or athletes or whatever. And I listen to a couple podcasts where, they're influencers, they're Christian, they're commentators and stuff like that. So they like to connect with their audience. Me, I'm a big proponent of, you don't have to believe the same as me. That's fine. There's a way, and we used to know it in this country, how to have civil discourse, even if we disagreed. We used to be able to do that. The culture today has shifted. I think we're trying to start to get back to it, but it's now, if we disagree, you hate me, we're enemies, we can't. Well, then you don't solve the problem. You still got to be able to and at the end of the day, if you just agree to disagree, so be it. I still see every other human being as a person who has value and worth. Why? Because I didn't put their value and their worth in who they are, what they believe, what they did, what their accomplishment. No, you're a human being created in the image of God. You got value. Even if you disagree or absolutely hate, despise my beliefs. I just posted that last night with the awesomest Good Friday video you'll ever see. If you didn't see it, check out the What Is Up social media. It's on there. It's the best thing. And I said, you don't have to believe the same as me. You might not want anything to do with God, or you've had a bad experience with that religion word. I hate that word, but it doesn't matter. What Jesus did on Good Friday, he did it for you too. It doesn't matter if you believe it or want anything to do with him. That's love. That's sacrifice. So give him a look. Just give him a look. But yeah, you don't have to agree with me, and that's okay. Life goes on. It's fine. But I do like to see the other side of things. I think that's one of the reasons why I started this is to get the discussion going about some of the crazier things I was seeing going on, and people just not wanting to talk about it. They just want to fight about it. Well, if I'm not willing to listen to the other side, it's not necessarily digging into a comment section, but I'll listen to people who have different worldviews than me. The secular humanists, who atheists that hate God or hate anything like that. And so battle lines are drawn, but I still want to know where they're coming from. It's been my example. Why do you think, the law enforcement officer, or you, if you show up on the scene or whatever and are trying to, you want to get to the root cause. You want to know, why are you in the position you're in so I can help you? I'm not saying I can help everybody, but I still want to know where they're coming from so I can understand, why do these kids think they're a different gender? I'm not just going to say, that's wrong, that ain't right, that's keep it away from. No, why do you feel? And then so you study it. You understand, listen to where they're coming through. Same thing with the pro-life issue. Why did they have this? What were they told? Why, how did they feel afterwards? Don't just say, oh, what you did was wrong and that's it. Understand where they're coming from. Just listen to the other side. And I think that will improve, the culture dramatically. If we just agree to let's listen to the other side. We may disagree, that's fine, but at least be able to talk and debate idea again. It seemed like the stories I heard, I don't know if you heard them, but when we were younger, the 70s college campus, that was the beacon for free speech. And now it's like the exact opposite. Now, if you believe something different than the majority, we just had another school shooting. What was that? Thursday at Florida State. You know what I mean? I don't know all the details, but you can't have people getting so upset over things, over disagreements. It's not worth it. Life is worth it. So we got to learn how to communicate.
I think the key there, you keep talking about, you got to be able to have that conversation. That conversation has to happen face to face.
Bingo.
Because the written word, whether it's a text, I mean, I live in a business world during the day. Emails get misinterpreted all the time. Texts get misinterpreted.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're married and you've not misinterpreted your wife's message or your husband's, then maybe you haven't been married very long.
No.
Because, like, how come there's no smiley emoji? How come there's no heart?
Yep.
What does she mean by this?
Oh, yeah.
Someone sends you a text. What are you doing? What's this mean? Like, so the conversations definitely have to happen face to face. So
absolutely.
That, because if you look at communication, only 7% of our communication is the words that we use. The rest of it's made up of voice inflection and body language and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So when we're communicating on social media or text messages or anything, they're only getting 7% of what we're trying to get across.
That ain't much.
You've got to be able to sit down and have a conversation. And at the end of the day, it's okay to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
But hear them out, listen to them.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I'm glad you brought that up at the end because, there's, even if it's uncomfortable, you still got to have that face-to-face interaction. That is key for sure. And I've said many times, I've said it to the Awana kids, I plant seeds in those Awana kids, when they're young and stuff that they probably don't get. But I honestly think the stuff that I would say to the young kids at Awana is what made the pastors and the elders eventually start asking me to preach from time to time. I really do. That was kind of my training ground, I guess, is giving short little devotions to kids who are a captive audience. I said, I honestly think the way to move forward is we got to go back. I just do more face-to-face interaction, more intentionally families doing things together, not near as much on the phone, on social media. Young kids got to learn how to get together and, go play football, go do this, that, and the other thing, stuff like that, but where does that come from? Somebody's got to lead the charge for that.
Yeah.
Or are we just going to wait and see, the worse things get, maybe we need to just go back to the old ways a little bit, pull back a little bit.
So I know when Jaden was growing up, he didn't have a phone and cell phones weren't that big. I mean, Candace and I had them, but we had family dinner, right? And he comes home from school, how's school? Fine. What'd you learn? Nothing, right?
Yeah.
And it's so hard to get anything out of him at the dinner table. But like when we lived here in Fairbank, we burned wood full time in the winter because, quite frankly, couldn't afford to heat that house any other way. And I would go out in the woods with him, chainsaw and an axe and two dudes.
Yeah.
And I'd hear everything that was on his mind.
Yeah.
Because you're just out there in the woods, just the two of you. And, it was like therapy.
Sure.
But,
Oof.
it was so much we were doing. Hard work, which is good, right?
Yep.
You get a little upset, wood's not cutting the way you want it to do or splitting isn't working. But, man, so much would get said out in those woods.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah. There's the science shows what we're talking about is a dopamine release, right? And you get these quick hits on the social media, which is what we've been talking about this whole time. And then it's almost like you become numb to it or you build up a resistance to it. So then you need more, which is the same as a drug addiction, right? Yeah. You're saying if we go forward and we do more wholesome things like that, more face-to-face things, being present in the moment, all this stuff, like your dopamine comes from something else and you feel good afterwards, but it's a totally different thing. You know what I'm saying? Oh man. Yeah. Let's get back to that point. Shall we, ladies and gentlemen? Who's on board? I am. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. You got any last words of wisdom for anybody, Troy, before we sign off?
Stay connected, man, and have fun.
I like it. Yeah.
Life's short, man.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you guys want, remember in part 1, we talked all about Alive and Running and the resources they offer and how to connect with them on Facebook. They got multiple support groups going on. They're involved with this stuff 24/7. Very humble beginnings, smaller beginnings, but it skyrocketed from there. So if you're struggling mentally or you just want more information, things like that, definitely reach out. They've got their own website, liveandrunningiowa.com. You can go to their Facebook page, stuff like that. You can reach out to me. I'll get you in touch with them as well. So Troy, I got to thank you for coming on, man. I'm glad we finally made this happen. I think I extended the invite like a year ago, and we just did not connect.
Yeah.
But we made it happen. That was awesome.
It's
So
been fun. Thank you.
it was a lot of fun. Some really good discussion. I'm sure you encouraged my audience. I don't say fans. I have listeners and audience. I don't have fans. So I'm trying to make sure I don't say it that way. But I'm sure you encouraged them with everything that you shared. hopefully you got people thinking a little bit about like what is up with life. We talked about what is up with social media and its effects on mental health. What is up with mismatched socks, women's wrestling, but hopefully you got people thinking about like what is up when it comes to life. You know, that's the big thing I'm trying to get at here. You know, so to my audience, have you caught yourself looking around and asking yourself like what is up? I know in 2020 it hit me really big. There were some big things going on. I was like, what is up with this stuff? It's just getting out of hand. So. But like me and Troy were talking about, like what is up with how, you know, exposing our kids to smartphones and social media at an early age it's actually hurting them in many ways. You know, how are we allowing that stuff to happen? Why are things the way they are? You know, or maybe you just have questions or doubts about things that just seem uncertain to you. Maybe you just got questions, uncertainties, and they're gnawing at you. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, the answers cannot be found down here. Guidance can be found down here, but the answers can't. We gotta look up, okay? If we look to God and His Word, He will truly show us what is up. I think the Bible has proven itself time and time again to give the best answers and explanations for why the world is the way it is and why we are the way we are. If you're struggling or you need help or you want to know more, you can join me any Sunday at FBC in Dunkerton, or you can watch online on our Facebook page if you're not in the area. You can email me directly, whatisuppodcast@gmail.com. I'll personally share the gospel with you. Try and answer any question you might have. Whatever you need, I'll try and help. But I'll start with this. No matter who you are or what you've done, God wants a relationship with you. That is a fact. Okay? That is why we are created. But it's up to us to choose Him. He don't force it. That's free will. You either want Him or you don't. And I'm telling you, that's where the joy and the hope and the peace that we're talking about, the stuff that you need to battle this mental health epidemic, that's where it comes from. I'm telling you, the best things in life, that's where it comes from. If you haven't figured it out by now, there's nothing else on this earth that's ever going to satisfy you completely or permanently. There's nothing else you can put your hope in. Everything will let you down. I let my kids down. Troy's not perfect. Everything's going to let you down. So there is no person, no philosophy, no government, no president, no teacher, no preacher. We got to look up, guys. I welcome feedback, questions, comments, even criticism. So reach out or leave a comment right there in the comment section. You can be open. I think I set mine to be uncensored. So if you don't like something, you can post it there too. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you're thinking. Help me hit my goal this year of doubling my subscribers and followers on all podcast and social media platforms. I'm trying to help people, encourage people, show them interesting people and their life stories. And I want that message to get out there. So help me do that by sharing, would you? Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope it really encouraged you. And as always, Lord willing, I'll talk to you on the next one.